Recording. Monica, over to you.
Thank you, Vidya. Okay, let me start by sharing my screen. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today's exciting session. Today we will explore how UiPath Autopilot act as your AI co-pilot for automations and how to build automation using, Studio Web. So, let's get started. A quick intro about me. So, myself, Monica Yadav. I am an RPA developer and a proud member of the UiPath community. I have been involved in building intelligent automation using UiPath. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn by scanning the QR code on the screen. Okay, so the agenda. So here's a quick look at what we will cover today. We will begin with the introduction to UiPath Studio Web, a browser-based automation tool that's easy to use and beginner-friendly. Then we will explore UiPath Autopilot, an AI-powered feature that acts like your automation co-pilot, so helping you to build faster and smarter. After that, we will go over a few best practices that will help you make the most out of these tools. Then next, I'll walk you through a live demo that is showing you to how to create an automation using Studio Web and Autopilot. And then finally, we will wrap the session today with an interactive Q&A session where I would love to hear your thoughts and answer any questions if you have. Okay, so moving forward. So let's start by looking at something that can really change the way you think about building automation, and that is UiPath Studio Web. You might have heard that big companies, they use automation for things like billing, sending emails, creating reports, and handling repetitive tasks. Normally, to set up these automation, people had to install special software, write complicated codes, or even often rely on IT experts to get everything working. But with UiPath Studio Web, the whole process, it becomes much easier, especially for students and for anyone who is new to the automation. So UiPath Studio Web, it is an automation development tool which works completely online through your web browser. This means that you do not have to download or install anything on your computer. You also don't need to worry about whether your computer is powerful enough to run it. All you need is a browser, right? So like Chrome or Edge, and you're ready to begin creating the automations. It's just like using Google Docs, but instead of writing the documents, you are building automated workflows that do tasks for you. So one of the best things about Studio Web is that you can use it on any computer, no matter what operating system you are working on, like Windows or Mac OS or Linux. This is great for classrooms, group projects, or even remote work, where everyone has to have the same kind of setup. Where you, nobody, like, we usually, what happens is that everybody doesn't have the same kind of setup with them. So it is better for such scenarios. There is no need to install anything. You do not need any admin permission, or you do not have to wait for the IT team to help you out, because it runs on the cloud. It's always updated automatically. This means you always get the newest features and the security without doing anything extra. Like, you don't have to worry about the updates, or worry about the security. Anything new that comes up and any enhancement that is done in the Studio Web, it is automatically implemented in your Studio Web, because it's a browser based, so you don't have to worry about it. Now, let's talk about something that many people worry about. That is that, do I have to know how to code to use this, right? You might also be thinking about this. So the answer to this is no. UiPath Studio, it is made for beginners who might not have any coding experience. So it is for the beginners, for the students. It uses an easy drag and drop interface. And it even provides ready-made templates. So you don't have to start from zero. You can either use the templates for your automation if there is a template already built for it. And if it is not, then also you don't have to worry about it, because you don't have to do the coding in it. It's just a drag and drop feature that you have to use. So whether you want to automate sending emails, pulling data from website, or dating the spreadsheet, you can do it all with just a few clicks. Isn't it nice? So that's why it's a great choice for students or the people who are not developers but want to learn something to start automation. So it is specially focused on those people. Now, another special feature of Studio Web is that the automation you create run on something called serverless robots. These are the software bots hosted in the cloud by UiPath. So you don't have to worry about installing or setting up, anything to run your workflows. Everything runs smoothly in the background. And if you want to, you can just run your automation on your own computer, whether it's Windows PC or a Mac or even your Linux system. So it gives you a lot of options and flexibility depending on what you need. So you don't have to worry about like whether do I have to install anything to run the process, or will my system be applicable to install that. You don't have to worry. If you have a browser, Chrome or either Edge, you're good to go, right? And it also lets you to build automation that can work across different applications and services. This means that your automation, it isn't stuck working with just one program. You can connect and interact with several tools at once. Like, for example, you can make an automation that gets data from the Google Sheet, sends the information in the Outlook email, and then update the CRM system like Salesforce, all in one smooth process, right? So this kind of automation is helpful, and not only for the student projects, but also for the real business situation sometimes, right? And if you're just beginning your journey in automation, or thinking about a career in AI, tech, or process improvement, Studio Web is a great place for you to start. It's simple to understand, it's easy to use, and has a power of cloud computing and AI behind it. Plus, the UiPath offers a lot of helpful learning materials, a friendly user community, certification, so you can earn as you learn more and improve your skills, right? So, okay, so raise your hands if you have ever had to fill out the same spreadsheet or copy data from one website to another over and over again. Or any repetitive task that you have to do again and again. It's like a boring work, but you have to do it. So have you encountered any such scenarios or any such situations in your day-to-day life? Okay. Okay, so that's exactly the kind of task that Studio Web is perfect for. And the best part is you can do it all by yourself without needing to hire a programmer. Isn't it nice? So now, earlier you have to do a repetitive task again and again, and it gets boring. Right, I totally get it. It gets boring. But what if I tell you that with Studio Web, you can automate this task, and it will be easily done. Along with that, you don't need a very well knowledge about the coding. It's just a drag and drop process, or sometimes a template is available. So you can just simply use the template and you're good to go, right? Okay, so moving ahead, UFS Studio Web, it brings the power of automation right into your browser. It's lightweight, it's quick, and built to help you start building automation fast. Okay, so even if you have never written any code before, okay, so you can easily build your automation. It works on any platform. It's made with beginners in mind, and it is designed to support the future of automation. Okay, I hope all the features that we have, like why do we have the Studio Web created, is clear to everyone. Now, moving to the next slide. Okay, so let's now take a quick look at how we can open and start the UiPath Studio Web. So, okay, so this is where your automation journey really begins. So let me just start the video. Okay. So as I have shown in the video here, all you need to do is open your web browser like Chrome or Edge and go to cloud.uipath.com. After you log in to your UiPath account, you will have access to your cloud-based tools that UiPath offers. Okay, so on the main dashboard, you go look for the Studio Web icon, and after clicking on the Studio Web icon, you are ready to go. Okay. So there is no need to download or install anything at all. Everything works directly from browser right away. So this makes it super convenient, especially for students or team using shared computers, or anyone who switches between home and school or different devices. So that's how simple it is to open Studio Web. No IT work needed, no setup processes, just log in and start building your own automation. Isn't it great? Okay, moving ahead, key features. So let's now go through the main features of UiPath Studio Web. Not just where they are, what they are, but also why they are important for developers' point of view, right? So first of all, Studio Web works completely in the cloud. As I mentioned before, it is a cloud-based application. So this means that you can create, change, and even run your automation workflows from anywhere or on any device that has internet access. So the only thing that you need is a browser that and a device basically that have internet access. So for developers, it is a big advantage. How? You don't need to set up your own system, worry about software versions, or install anything. You can get started right away. It also makes it easier and faster to bring new team members on board, right? Because everyone can access the tools directly in the browser without needing the help from IT. So this is especially useful for team working with from different locations or from using different devices. Now the next, it also offers a drag and drop interface and a low code environment. So it looks and feels similar to the desktop version, but it's designed to work smoothly in the browser. So while it's simple enough for beginners, experienced developers will also enjoy how quickly they can create the prototypes. You can build your logic visually, work faster, or focus on designing how the automation works instead of writing the code line by line, which is a very hectic situation sometimes. Yeah, like it is a time consuming thing. So you can use the Studio Web feature to use automate that. Whether you're working a quick proof of concept, the POCs, or designing a sample workflows, or building reusable parts, Studio Web, it makes the process smooth and efficient. Okay, so now one of the best thing with Studio Web is how easily it connects with the popular business tools like Microsoft 365, Outlook, Excel. Then we have the Google Workspace, which have Gmail, Sheets. Then we have SAP, Salesforce, and many more. So these tools, they already have a built-in connectors. Okay, so you don't need to worry about writing extra code or set up complicated logins. From a developer's point of view, this saves a lot of time and efforts, especially when you need to build automation that work across several applications. So this is really helpful when working on business processes that involve multiple cloud services, because since you have the integration services of that have integrated many applications inside it, so it is easily accessible to the developers and they can easily connect their system with it and use the application. Okay, so the next point, since Studio Web works in a browser, okay, so it doesn't matter what operating system you are using, whether you are using your Windows or Macros or Linux, you get the same experience, right? So this is especially helpful in teams where people use different platforms like DevOps or hybrid work environment. Plus, you won't have to face the problems with installing the software, which is great when working in systems managed by the IT team or environment with the restrictions. So you don't have to face any restrictions as such. Okay, and this UiPath Studio Web, it also supports the smart automation by connecting with advanced tools such as UiPath Document Understanding, which what does it do? It basically reads and pulls the data from the documents like the PDF, invoices, and forms, right? And it also helps with the it also supports basically the communication mining, which is the processes message from email, tickets, and chats. So this means the developers aren't just automating clicks and simple tasks. They are building smart workflows, right? You are using extracting data from the document, or interacting with the integration services like other applications like Gmail, Outlook. So you are building smart workflows. You can bring in machine learning to make decision, pull information and understand the content in the context. So this is greatly increases what's possible with automation, especially in industries like finance, healthcare, logistics, and even customer services, where understanding data is the key. So to sum it up, I would say UiPath Studio Web gives you a quick and easy access without setup delays, a visual low-code interface that's still powerful and flexible. Okay. Third, it's a built-in integration that saves the time, like Gmail or Outlook, as I have discussed, compatibility across all the major operating systems, and the last, AI tools that allows the full intelligent automation. So from a developer's perspective, it is a powerful platform for quick building, okay, testing and launching the cloud-based automation, especially when with speed, accessibility, and smooth connections to the other applications are important. So it is especially useful in such scenarios. Okay, so moving forward, now let's talk about one of the most exciting and powerful feature of UiPath Studio Web, and that is UiPath Autopilot. Okay. So what is it? It is an AI powered assistant that helps you build automation faster and more intelligently. How? By removing much of the manual work involved in designing workflows. Okay, so the question that will come to your mind after listening to this is that what exactly does it do, right? So it supports the developer by understanding the natural language inputs. What is it? You can simply describe what you want in plain English. For example, like read data from an Excel file and send an email if a value is above 100. So Autopilot, it interprets that output and begins to generate the necessary automation logics. Okay. And it also supports the developer by suggesting actions and generating expressions. It can automatically suggest the next step in a workflow and even write the complex expressions like, conditions, loops, or data transformation without requiring you to, look at the syntax. So sometimes as a developer, the challenge that we face is that there are a lot of queries, lot of things that we are using at the same time. We tend to forget the syntax of a particular thing, right? Like for the for each or if condition or something like that. So we with Autopilot, we don't have to worry about it, right? We just simply have to give our phrase in a single language, English language basically, or any other language, and it will just interpret it and create the workflow for us accordingly. And it will also take care of all the syntaxes and the loops and anything that is needed inside the workflow. So we don't have to worry about any such thing going wrong. And it also helps by providing intelligent guidance throughout. How? As you build, Autopilot actively assists you to, by offering suggestions, renaming activities, meaningful names, giving meaningful names to your activities, and simplifying the design with the pre-validated, logic paths. So it helps you to reduce both the development time and the human error time, basically. So we as human tends to make mistake, right, with the syntax, as I have explained earlier. So we don't have to worry about it when we are using the Autopilot, because it will reduce the time. It will just create the workflow in within seconds, and then there are very less chances of the errors being occurred, right? So now we have understood like what Autopilot does for us. So why does it matter? So as a developer, we often spend a lot of time writing expressions, figuring out the right activity, like what activity we have to use, or testing the syntax. Autopilots, it shortens this entire circle. How? Cycle. By, you can think of it like ChatGPT, but embedded inside UiPath Studio Web and trained specially to understand the automation device and the UiPath activity library. Okay, so it's basically do all your automation work inside the Studio Web and saves your time and chances of errors being occurred. So as you can refer to the image on the right side, if you look at this image on the screen, you will see exactly where to access the UiPath Autopilot inside Studio Web. So this is a template. You can see there are two tabs, workspace and template. So this template tab, it is within the Studio Web interface. Okay. And right at the top left, there is a box which says use Autopilot to generate your project. So this is our Autopilot. I'll be explaining it to you via demo at the end. And it promotes you to describe your project in natural language, like a single phrase that you have to write, prompt basically. Clicking on the blue get started button, it launches the autopilot for you, allow you to begin building your automation with a simple prompt. So essentially, autopilot takes your instruction and it begins assembling the workflow for you, reducing the need for repetitive manual steps. Okay. Now, how it fits into your workflow. So as a developer, you don't just need the speed. We need precision, maintainability, and clarity. Autopilot, it helps us with rapid prototyping, generating accurate expressions, and integrating with the third-party applications by suggesting the selectors or the API calls or the logic paths. So it becomes a collaborative code assistant which helps you, build workflows step by step, just like a senior sitting beside you, guiding through each step. So you can take it as something like this. Okay. So I would say it is your AI co-pilot. It enables you to build faster builds, smarter logic generation, and easier onboarding for both the new and the experienced developer. And the best part is it is directly built into Studio Web, fully accessible via the browser. No extra setup is required, right? Isn't it great? Okay, so moving ahead. Now let's take a closer look at how UiPath's Autopilot actually help us as a developers during the automation design process. So it's more than just a shortcut tool. It's an intelligent assistant that enhances the workflow quality, reduces the errors, and speed up the development. So the first key feature is it is AI driven action suggestions. So based on your previous step, Autopilot, it can intelligently recommend what are your next activity should be, or like what your next step should be. Okay, for example, if you start by opening an Excel, Autopilot might suggest to read a particular range of data, or filtering the data, or performing a calculation next. So because it understands the common automation patterns, that is why it is able to suggest you something, right? This helps streamline the development flow and avoids the unnecessary backtracking. So it is especially valuable when designing longer logic heavy processes where sequencing the right activity matters for the performance and the accuracy of the process. Okay. Second, we have automatic expression generation. So this is one of the biggest time savers. Okay, Autopilot, it can generate VB or link queue expressions for tasks like filtering data tables, applying conditions, manipulating strings, or doing calculations. For instance, let's say if you're checking if a column value is greater than a threshold and you want to filter it, normally you would write a data table dot select function or for each row or with an if block, right? Autopilot can generate this for you just by understanding what you are trying to achieve. So you have to give the prompt and it will understand the prompt and do the action for you. So this removes a lot of overhead developers face, when developing the syntax problems, especially in complex data-driven workflows, right? So the third major capability of it is that it is seamless integration with third-party apps and services. So whether you are working with Google Sheets, Outlook, Salesforce, or even calling an API, Autopilot simplifies the setup for you. For example, if you want to read a data from Google Sheet, right, and use it to trigger the Outlook emails, Autopilot helps by suggesting the correct connectors that you need to take, pre-populating the required parameters, and even building the data mapping logic. So this drastically, what it does is it reduces the integration efforts that the developer needs to do, especially in cross-platform, because we are accessing the Google Sheets and then the Outlook, right? Involving multiple systems. So it will reduce our efforts in that, in the cross-platform workflows. Okay. Last but not the least, it's Autopilot is also support activity name auto generation, right? So this may seem minor to you, like how does activity getting renamed is helping us in a longer picture or a bigger picture, right? So let me just tell you, it is a very significant, it significantly improves the code readability and maintainability, right? So instead of naming activity as assign one or assign two or read email, Autopilot generates some meaningful context aware names like assign invoice total, read reminder email, right? So this improves the collaboration when working in teams and helps in debugging or reviewing the workflows later on. So let's suppose if you are working in a team and another developer is going through your workflow, the person will able to understand your workflows just by the activity renames and the annotations that are used within the process, right? So it is helpful for that purpose as well. Also, sometimes what happens is that we are tend to create multiple automations, and let's suppose if you have created three automations and you are working on the third one and certain condition certain requirement appears where you have to test the first one. So you go back to the first one, and now since you are working on multiple processes, you tend to forget one or two steps. But with the activity renames and the annotations being there in the process, it is easily helpful for you as well to understand while testing the process. Okay. So it improves the collaboration when working in teams, as I mentioned, and it while you are debugging also. So as we all know, good name saves hours during troubleshooting and it enhances the long-term reusability of the workflows, right? So let's say if you want to build a workflow that reads customer order data, filter for high value orders, and then sends a follow-up email. So with Autopilot, how it is done, you describe the task in natural language. It suggests reading the data file, adding a file filter condition, and then choosing send Outlook mail activity. Then afterwards, it writes the filtering expression for you. So there will be no syntax error, right? Then it names the filter activity as let's suppose say filter high value orders, and the email activity, let's suppose send follow-up email. So it will be easier for you to read the code in future, or if any other person is reading your code, right? And if you're integrating Google Sheets or APIs, it prepares the necessary authentication and data mapping for you as well. So in minutes, you have a structured, readable, functional workflow ready for you to use. Isn't it great? Okay. So in short, I would say it doesn't just save the time, it enhances your workflow quality, accelerates the onboarding of new team members, and also brings a layer of AI intelligence into everyday development tasks. Okay, it's like having a skilled peer developer sitting next to you, catching patterns, reducing the repetitive work, and also suggesting better, faster ways to build your process. Right? Okay, moving forward. Now let's walk through the step-by-step process of building an automation using UiPath Autopilot in Studio Web. So this is where we move from concept to execution. And as you will see, the process is extremely streamlined thanks to the AI assistance. Okay, so first, what we do is journey begins by opening the Studio Web. Okay, from the browser. You are in the portal. Simply click on create project. You will be prompting to give your project name and optionally a description as well of the project. It's optional, but yeah. And then from the development standpoint, this is your baseline, the containers where all the workflow complements will live. Okay. Second, next you will choose whether to use a pre-built template or start the process from a blank project. So templates, they are extremely useful for standard business scenarios like data extraction, email automation, or approval workflows. But if your process is unique or experimental, or you're starting from scratch, gives you more flexibility in such scenarios. Either way, you are getting a structured foundation to build upon, which reduces the manual setup time. Okay. So even if your process that you are going to automate is not there in the template, you can use the autopilot feature and just simplify it, right? So it will not take that much time. Okay. So now comes the core value, that is the autopilot. So instead of dragging every activity manually, you simply just describe your workflow in natural language. For example, we give a prompt like read data from Google Sheets, filter the rows where status is pending, and send email reminders. Okay, so this autopilot passes this input, generates a relevant activities, configure them with logic, and build the initial flow. So this not only saves the development time, but it also prevents the syntax errors and speed up the prototyping, as I've also explained earlier, right? So in traditional development, adding expressions from conditions like if else or data filtering or string formatting, it requires careful syntax. But when we are using autopilot, you can simply describe what the condition should be, and it automatically generates the correct expression. For example, let's suppose we say, okay, check if due date is less than today's date. Okay, so autopilot, it will convert that to the valid date time condition, and then it greatly reduces the trial and error time spent on debugging the expression errors. It will automatically give you the correct syntax expression for you to use in your workflow. Okay, and this autopilot, it also simplifies the third party integration. So once it identifies your referencing Google Sheets or Outlook, it prompts you to connect your account, then auto suggests the configuration values like sheet name, email, subject, or field mapping. So as developers, we are typically spend time handling the authorization, setting up endpoints, or formatting the payloads, right? So this autopilots, it handles much of this behind the scenes using the pre-built connectors, saving your hours of time that you spend in setting up this whole environment. Okay, so once the flow is built, Studio Web, it provides a clean interface for you to test your automation step by step. You can run it, inspect output, check the logs in real time. So once you have verified your automation, you can deploy it to the unattended robot, either cloud hosted or machine based, depending on your orchestrator setup, right? And the requirement. So this is great for moving from test to production quickly. Okay, so the next, it's a small but an impactful feature. Autopilot, it also suggests meaningful names for your activities based on their function. So instead of generic names like assign one or send email, it gives your assign activity a meaningful name, or a email send an email activity a meaningful name. So this improves the workflow readability, collaboration, and debugging, especially in larger projects where we have a lot of activities combining together in a workflow. So it might get confusing sometimes. And if a new developer is looking at the workflow, it will obviously be confusing for that person. So just to simplify the process, just to make the other person also, other developer also understand the workflow and the process flow, we are giving renaming the activity is the best practices that needs to be implemented. Okay. Moving ahead. Okay, so now let's take a closer look at one of the most productivity boosting capabilities of UiPath Autopilot, and it is its support for expression generation and integration with the third-party apps and web platforms. So Autopilot for expression, it is an AI-powered engine which is built in Studio Web that automatically writes the expression for you, whether you are dealing with conditions such as if, else if, or comparison, or you are dealing with calculations such as maths, percentage, or string length, etc., or you are dealing with data manipulations such as data manipulations in data table, JSON parsing, string formatting, right? So as a developer, we often rely on reference materials or the syntax documentation to build the accurate expressions, especially for the complex use cases. But this autopilot, it eliminates this overhead by generating expression dynamically based on our context, on the prompt that we give it, right? So let's go to the key features. So first is automatic expression generation. This means that autopilot will recommend complete expression based on what it detects in your activity. So let's suppose if you are setting up a condition, it might suggest amount greater than 1,000. If you are totaling anything or something, checking the amount. So it suggests amount greater than and then 1,000, or if you are assigning the format string, so it might say, let's suppose if in the total at the zero position you have to write the total amount value, so it will give you syntax like string dot format, or total zero position will be total amount, right? So it helps you generate such expressions. It understands the data structure you are working with, and accordingly it proposes the accurate syntax which reduces the error, and along with that it improves the speed of your process, right? And it's a helpful. Okay, second one is simplification of logic, complex logics. So it just doesn't stop at simple conditions. It can even handle loop logics, data filtering, and transformation. Say you need to filter a data table on the date column. Okay, so it generates but that particular expression for you to filter out the data table based on dates. So this is helpful for developers who know the logic, but they don't want to spend the time debugging the syntax, or think about the correct syntax, whether it is right or not, and spend time and all that. So it is really helpful for those developers. Now the third is it is AI enhanced accuracy. So since Autopilot uses the trained models and context aware logic, so the accuracy of its expression is very high. Okay, so not only syntactically, but it is also semantically aligned with what the workflow is doing. So this drastically what it does is it reduces the trial and error debugging, or and also helps standardize the expression across teams and the projects. Okay, so now let's move to how Autopilot enhances the app integration. Now let's shift our focus on Autopilot assists in integrating with external system like CRMs or spreadsheets, or let's suppose say web apps or REST APIs. Okay, the first one is automatic expression supports for integration. So when you are working with applications like apps like Google Sheets, Salesforce, or Outlook, your Autopilot, it can generate the correct mapping, like example, mapping sheet columns to variables. And it can also generate the API payload formats for example, for REST calls, right? And it can also generate expression filters for selecting records or parsing the responses. So this helps us to eliminate the need to manually write the transformation logic when moving data from across the platform, like from one platform to another. When we have to move the data, we don't have to implement the complex logics. We can just simply give the prompt to the Autopilot, and it will do the work for you, us. Okay, so next one is when we are working with web automation, Autopilot can suggest the correct UI selectors, fill in the arguments for clicking or type activities, and it can also choose optimal action sequence for navigating to forms, drop downs, or tables. So it is especially useful in cases where like logging into website, extracting data, or submitting the dynamic forms, where accuracy in selectors and logic matters. If our selector is not correct, our process is tend to fail. So it is really helpful in such scenarios for us. Okay, and it can also even help with API integration, like including creating the structured bodies for JSON or XML, and then for mapping headers, tokens, or endpoints. Then there is handling APIs responses, parsing and error logics. So it can help us with all these integrations. For example, like let's say if you want to call our API to send customer data. Okay, so it can Autopilot can structure the JSON, set the headers, and pass the response all in few clicks without of you writing raw HTTP logic. It has done the work for you and made your work easier. So now you just have to uh, enter few inputs and you're good to go, right? So imagine you are building, okay, let's say, imagine you're building a workflow to, extract high value leads from Salesforce. Then you have to format that data. Okay, extracting the data leads, then formatting the data. Then you are sending that email through Outlook and log the summary in Google Sheet that we have sent the email for this particular data. Okay, so now how Autopilot will help you in this? Autopilot will filter the leads using the expressions. Then it will map email fields and suggest subject line to you as well. Okay. And then it will create the integration blocks for Outlook because you have to send the mail, and then format the rows and update the sheets directly. So with minimum manual efforts, the logic is constructed with the best practices keeping in mind. Okay. So Autopilot for expression and integration, it is more than just an AI helper. It is an accelerator for building the intelligent, accurate, and integrated automation workflows. So it shortens your development time, ensures the reliability, and also let you focus on logics and outcomes rather than syntax and repetitive setups. So it helps a developer in a great extent, on a great extent. Okay. So best practices. So while Autopilot, UiPath Autopilot, it is a powerful AI-driven tool that simplifies the automation development. But it is important to understand how to use this effectively, right? Uh, so these best practices that I'm going to explain to you right now will help ensure accuracy, maintainability, and scalability of the automation. So let's say we have this autopilot feature with us, and if we are not aware like how to use this effectively, we are wasting its capability of generating the workflows for us. So it's important for us to understand how effective it is and where we have to look into it, and maintain the best practices while using the autopilot. Okay. So the first is validate autopilot suggestions. So autopilot expressions and this integration recommendations, are intelligent, but they are not perfect, right? Always review the generated expressions, make sure that they align with your business rules, and verify that the field mappings, conditions, or the data manipulations, they are correct. So just because something is correct by syntax, that doesn't mean it meets the process requirement from the business that you have to do. So thorough testing is essential before moving our code from testing or from development to production. Okay. So what happens is that the prompts that we give, it totally depends on the prompts that we give. So let's suppose if a business requirement is something different and we understood it, but while writing the prompt, we were not able to make the autopilot understand that. It will create the workflow different than our business requirement. So it is essential, even though the autopilot will create the workflow for us, it is important to cross verify each and every activity again. It will take few seconds to just look at this, but it will save a lot of time in future if the requirements we go to the production and the bot fails. So it is important to go do the thorough testing of the process. Then use autopilot for repetitive tasks. So autopilot, it excels at generating logic for common repeatable patterns like filling the forms or formatting the emails or data extraction, loop structures. So instead of wasting time writing the same block or same activities, using the same activities over and over, leveraging autopilot to build the base logic is fast and it is more efficient. So this boosts the developers productivity, and it also allows you to focus on high value custom logics. So instead of you wasting your time continuously on repetitive tasks, although there are multiple processes that follows the same repetitive task, you are using your productivity and your energy continuously developing that. It's highly recommended to use autopilot that will create the repetitive task for you, and you can use your energy in some more custom or high value logics that needs to be done. Okay. The third is integrate AI with human oversight. So AI can automate routine logic, but it cannot understand the business context as deeply as a human. So you should always review every AI generated expression, especially in critical flows like financial calculations or data sensitivity tasks. Then add conditional branching or exception handling wherever you feel it is required, and also customize the suggestions to suit edge cases or compliance logic. So think of autopilot as a junior developer, it is helpful, it is creating the workflow for us, but it still needs your supervision. Just go through this the whole workflow once and you're good to go. And if there is anything that needs to be changed, we can do it manually, right? It won't take much of our time. Now, the next one is keep the code clean and organized. So, maintaining the code is maintainable code. It is the key, even in low code platforms like UiPath. So, the best practice is we have to include the naming your variables or activities very descriptively, then grouping related actions using sequences of workflows. We should also add comments to explain the non-obvious logics or the decisions that are little complex. So this improves the readability of the for teammates and also for you, and it makes your workflow easier to debug, and also it comes handy while auditing or something. Okay. Then the next thing is debug and test autopilot generated code. So don't just assume everything works right out of the box. Okay. So you should use a debugger to test each part of your workflow that has been created by the autopilot. Step through activities and inspect the variables as well. Then you should catch and correct any logic flows or runtime exception before deploying your bot from testing to production. So your Studio Web, it provides tool for breakpoints, logs, or output panels is also there. So use them actively during the development of the process. Okay, so now that we have covered what Autopilot is and how it works, best practices for using it, let's move to the most exciting part, that is a live demo to see the Autopilot in action. I'll walk you through some like how to build the automation from scratch using the natural language, that's the prompt. And I'll also, you will also see like how Autopilot generate workflow steps, expressions, and integrates with other applications all within just a few clicks. Okay, so let's jump into the Studio Web and let's explore what it's really like to build, with the AI Copilot. Okay, so let me just move to the Chrome. So I have logged into cloud.uipath.com. Okay. So here, this is the home screen. If I go here and click on this studio, it will navigate me to the Studio Web.
Monica, you there? Hi. Hi, everyone. Just stay there. I think there was some technical glitch on Monica's side. We are working to get the speaker back.